Welcome. I am playing with the new BetterPress from Spellbinders. I am so excited. I was gifted this machine from Altenew and from Spellbinders, and I just wanted to share my first impressions with you and give you some tips and tricks that I learnt along the way. This is a machine that coordinates with your die cutting machine to give an impression of like a letterpress look, which is something that I've always strived for. Setting up the machine, it comes with these 3 shims, and basically you just need to place those inside the base, or the chase is what they call it, and then the magnetic plate just sits on top of that. Then there's a clear plate that you attach your cardstock to, put your press plate onto the magnetic plate, add the ink and press. It's meant to be that simple. We'll see, shall we? Anyway, this is the press plate that comes with the initial box setup, and it has a couple of sentiments as well. I love this flower. It's a really pretty flower. You've already seen it already if you've been watching any of these BetterPress videos. And the box also comes with 3 different colors of cardstock that you can practice with. What I'm doing here is I'm actually putting my press plate, the flower, into the corner. This way I can actually do 2 impressions on one piece of cardstock, and while I'm learning the machine, I'm not going to waste too much cardstock. Now you do need to adhere the actual, this is a special cardstock, it's a cotton panel, and it's specifically made to create a nice impression with the press plates. You can try other cardstocks as well. And I initially did adhere this onto the back of the cardstock because I thought that I was going to run into problems with where it inked. But looking at it in a minute, I didn't need to worry about this at all. So next it's time to add the ink. And this is basically just like inking up a stamp. I've got the BetterPress black ink that also comes in the kit. And I'm just tapping it onto the press plate like you would on any stamp. Now these magnetic snaps are on each corner, and literally that acrylic plate just snaps into place, but it actually leaves a little air gap between, so that when you roll it through your die cutting machine, it presses down and impresses the image onto the cotton cardstock. It's genius and it looks amazing. My first impression here, I'm happy, but there's not good ink coverage. I was too skimpy on the ink. So I suggest that when you're using the BetterPress black or any of the BetterPress inks, be generous, don't be skimpy. And one thing to note is that you will probably need to get the re-inkers for these inks, because you use a little bit more. It's like an archival ink. It's specifically created for this machine by Ranger. So that's good news, and I'm so much happy. My second impression, much better. So I'm learning. And I couldn't lift up the actual press plate from the base, so I just used my magnetic tweezers and they worked a treat. Now I've already been spending money, because this is why I was going to hesitate and not get it just yet. But I wanted this sentiment set, and I thought I'd see how it goes. It's from Spellbinders, and it stamps out or presses out a few sentiments all at once, and it has a coordinating die to create banners. So I thought that would really go well. I needed something that was going to be multi-purpose, so I can coordinate this with my other images that I've got. Next, I wanted to try using different kinds of ink. So I've got the Altenew Fresh Dye ink here, and I was thinking I need to do the same as what I did with the BetterPress ink and add more. No, you actually don't need to add more ink when it comes to the Fresh Dye ink. And remember that this ink is a water-based ink as well. So if you're wanting to do watercoloring techniques, then this won't work. You will need to use the archival style ink or the BetterPress ink instead. But you could definitely do ink blending over the Fresh Dye inks, or also pencil colouring to add colour after. But it just looks great as an outline, as that real letterpress look. And the second time I ran that through, much happier. Next, I wanted to try some watercolor background and try the impression on top of that and just see how that went and how this cardstock worked with like watercolors, and it was beautiful. It's almost like having one of the watercolor cardstocks, the cotton based ones, which might be something worth trying as well to see how, what other cardstocks might work with this. I did actually make sure this panel was nice and dry before I did my impression with the press plate, and I made sure to add a lot of the ink here. And then when I rolled it through my die cutting machine, I did it nice and slowly. I forgot to mention before, when I actually left my press plate in place when I was flipping, but I was actually flipping the acrylic lid to get the two impression images. And this is my final trial for today. I don't have a Spellbinders die cutting machine, so I was worried I wasn't getting enough pressure when I was rolling it through. So I thought I'd try it with just a thin shim. To be honest, it really made very minimal difference. In fact, the press plate nearly cut through at each end of the impression. And when I ran my fingers over top of this image that I had the shim with and the other image, it was much the same, really was. So this weight cardstock is 118 pounds, and you can also get a heavier weight cardstock. It's going to be hard for us in Australia to actually access a lot of the products because they don't kind of make it over here. So we have to kind of make do with what we can get. So I did manage to pick up some cardstock from one of the local shops, but 25 pieces of card. Look at the thickness of that compared to the 25 in the 118 pound. I'm going to have to remove out some of those shims. What do you reckon? So what are my first impressions of the BetterPress? I like it. And I knew I would. Let me know in the comments below if you think you might like this machine, if it's something that is not interesting you, or if you're just going to watch and wait for a while. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much for joining me here. Till next time, happy paper crafting. Bye.